Tonight, when the sun goes down, you'll probably do something automatic. You'll reach for a switch. Light floods the room, and the dark disappears before you even notice it was there. You won't think twice about it. But for almost all of human history, that switch didn't exist, and the real answer to what filled the dark instead is far stranger than you think.
For most of the time humans have existed, night meant something almost unrecognizable to you now. No streetlights, no phone screen glowing in your hand. Only the sound of wind, the shapes you couldn't quite make out at the edge of camp, and a fire that someone had to keep alive. Your brain still remembers this, even now. That tightening in your chest when you walk into a dark room, that's not a malfunction, it's an inheritance. Here's where it gets interesting. Anthropologist Polly Wiesner spent years recording conversations among the Yuhuansi, a hunter-gatherer community in southern Africa, and noticed something her recordings made impossible to ignore. During the day, people talked about practical things, complaints, logistics, minor disputes. But at night, around the fire, the conversation transformed almost completely. People told stories, long, sprawling stories about ancestors, spirits, in the unseen world. Wiesner's data showed that firelight didn't just light the camp. It seemed to rewire the entire social mood of the group. Why would darkness do that? Think about what darkness actually takes away from you. It strips out almost all visual information. Your eyes, normally responsible for most of what you process, suddenly go quiet. And when vision drops out, something else takes over. Your hearing sharpens. This isn't a metaphor. Research on sensory compensation shows that when visual input decreases, auditory attention measurably increases. In the dark, every sound becomes a question your brain has to answer immediately. What made that noise? Is it close? Is it moving towards you? For most of human history, getting that question wrong could be fatal. This is where the fear comes from, not random anxiety, calculation. Evolutionary psychiatrist Randolph Nesse has spent decades studying why humans evolved anxiety in the first place, and his answer reframes the entire emotion. Nesse compares fear to a smoke detector. A cheap smoke detector goes off constantly, even when you're just making toast. An expensive, finely tuned one might stay silent and let an actual fire burn the house down. Evolution, in his view, builds cheap smoke detectors. It would rather you flinch at 100 shadows that mean nothing than miss the one shadow that means everything. That's why your heart still jumps at a sound in an empty house. It's not weakness. It's a very old alarm system doing exactly what it was built to do. But fear alone doesn't explain the fire circles. It doesn't explain the stories. Harvard primatologist Richard Wrangham has argued that the control of fire didn't just change what early humans ate, it changed what they did with their evenings. Before fire, the day ended when the sun did, because darkness was simply too dangerous to move through. Once early humans controlled flame, the night opened up into something genuinely new in the history of any species. Hours with nothing to hunt, nothing to gather, nothing to flee from. So what did they do with all that time? They talked, not about logistics, about meaning. Wiesner found that nighttime conversations were dramatically more likely to include myth, moral lessons, and shared history than daytime conversations were. The campfire became something like a stage, and darkness was the reason the stage existed at all. Here's the twist that should unsettle you a little. The fear and the storytelling weren't separate systems. They were the same mechanism, pointed in two directions. The same heightened alertness that made a snap twig terrifying also made a well-told story feel unforgettable. Darkness amplified threat. Darkness amplified meaning. Your ancestors weren't choosing between being scared and being moved. The dark made both states sharper at the exact same time. That's not a coincidence. It's a feature. Fear focused attention. Attention made stories stick. Stories that stuck taught the next generation what to avoid and what mattered. A frightened audience, it turns out, is a captive one. The people sitting closest to the fire weren't just warm, they were paying the most attention of their entire day. Does that sound familiar? It should, because you still live inside this system. even with electricity humming in every room of your house. Think about when you tell the scariest stories you know. Not at noon, in a parking lot, around a fire, or with the lights off. After midnight, voices low. You instinctively recreate the exact sensory conditions your ancestors lived in every single night, and you do it on purpose now, for fun, because something in you still quietly associates darkness with significance. Think about why a horror movie works better in a dark theater than on a bright laptop screen at lunch. The content hasn't changed. Your sensory environment has. You're borrowing the same ancient alertness deliberately for entertainment. Even your phone betrays this pattern. Notice how much heavier a late-night scroll through bad news feels compared to reading the same headline at 9 in the morning. The words are identical. Your nervous system isn't reading them differently because the information changed. It's reading the darkness around them. There's a deeper layer here too, and it isn't just psychological. Sleep researchers studying circadian rhythm have found that hormones like cortisol and melatonin shift across the day in ways that don't just affect when you feel tired. They affect how threats get processed. At night, your brain runs a more cautious, more emotionally reactive version of itself. You're not imagining that everything feels heavier after dark. Your biochemistry is quietly cooperating with that feeling, the same way it has for hundreds of thousands of years. So when you lie awake at 2 in the morning, turning over a worry that felt completely manageable at noon, you're not malfunctioning. You're doing exactly what an ancient brain evolved to do in the dark. Take the threat seriously. Stay alert. Don't relax until daylight confirms it's safe. The tragedy, if you can call it that, is that the threats which used to wait in the dark mostly don't exist anymore. No predators are circling your bedroom. No rival group is approaching your camp. But the alarm system doesn't know that. It only knows the lights are off. And for almost the entire span of human existence, that has always meant pay attention. This is the strange inheritance you're carrying around. A circuit built for a world full of predators, now firing in a world full of deadlines, unread messages, and unpaid bills. The dark doesn't invent new fears for you. It just turns up the volume on the ones you already have, the way it always has. And the storytelling instinct never disappeared either. It just changed formats. Around a fire became around a screen. A voice in the dark became a podcast in your earbuds at midnight, or a video exactly like this one, watched alone, lights off. At the exact hour your ancestors would have been listening to someone older explain why the world worked the way it did. There's something almost touching about that continuity, tens of thousands of generations apart, and the basic ritual hasn't changed. Dim the light, lower the voice, tell the story that explains the unknown. Only the technology delivering it is new. So tonight, when the sun goes down and you reach for that switch without thinking, pause for 1 second before you flip it. Notice the shift, the brief automatic alertness, even in a perfectly safe room. That isn't a glitch in your psychology.
It's a few 100,000 sunsets, still running quietly in the background, still doing its job long after the fires themselves went out.